I'll admit it, I'm a noise snob. I will sacrifice the performance of my desktop PC to keep it as quiet as possible, which is why I've run a custom water-cooled system for a few years now. Overall, it's been great. However, the main problem with a water-cooled system is that it's a pain in the richer to upgrade. Now, I've recently upgraded my system and I've gone back to air-cooled. But Brett, didn't you just say you're a noise snob? Yes, which is why I've drawn inspiration from Mr. Tech Tips himself. I'm sure if you're watching my channel, you also watch Linus. And if you watch Linus, I'm sure you've seen his video on how he and his wife's PCs are running in another room to eliminate not only the noise, but the heat output as well. Man, that's actually like a really good idea. Let's see how he's doing that. And Jesus H. Christmas, I'm not paying that much to keep my PC in another room. Luckily, we don't really have to, obviously, since this video exists. Let's take a look at how I copied Linus's setup without spending thousands of dollars. All right, let's talk about my physical space first, because ultimately that's what lets me accomplish this task. My office is on the second floor of my house and shares a wall with my attic. And directly under my attic, on the other side of this wall, is my server room. This means that there's only about 15 to 20 feet between my monitors and my server rack itself. Fortunately, this means that every cable I need, video, USB, audio, is within spec to run that distance. This means that we can eliminate the super expensive USB over fiber solution. Now, there are two routes I could have gone with. Route 1 would have me running individual cables for the video, USB, and audio. Route 2 would have me running a fiber Thunderbolt cable to a dock and then just have all of my outputs work off of that. Which option do you think I went with? I'll give you a few seconds to stop the video and comment below. Okay, but for real, comment. It helps the algorithm. I don't care if you just comment the word potato or something. Also, subscribe. I don't know if that helps the algorithm, but it makes me feel better, and that's cool. All right, so I actually went with option 1 and ran individual cables. I really like the idea of a single Thunderbolt cable. However, there was basically one real thing that stood in the way: price. I'm not talking about just the price of the actual Corning Thunderbolt cable that I need, but the motherboards needed to output Thunderbolt with video are insanely expensive. Now, what I'm gonna say next is gonna sound a bit stupid, but I upgraded my system to run a 13900K and a 4090. I know.
Brett, how can you complain about price when you're spending that much on a PC?
Look, you have to make compromises somewhere. For one, I was upgrading from a system with 128 gigabytes of DDR4 RAM, and every single motherboard that was compatible with a 13th series Intel chip and had Thunderbolt output was also a DDR5 board. So not only would I have to spend more on the Thunderbolt setup itself, but I'd have to go out and buy 128 gigabytes of DDR5. That's getting up there. Also, I wanted to test a setup that could be done no matter what your setup is. The way I'm running this doesn't really require anything other than some longer cables and can be done with almost any system from a $100 rig to a $10,000 rig. So it really is that simple for the most part. I purchased 2 DisplayPort cables, 1 HDMI, 1 USB 3.0, 1 USB-C 3.0 or 1 or 2, and 1 aux cable. I actually like the idea of running individual video cables because I wouldn't have to worry about being limited on the bandwidth from a Thunderbolt dock if I wanted to drive some fancy displays. I was, however, worried about running my peripherals over a long USB cable like that. Would I notice any lag? Would my wireless peripherals go in and out? These were things that had the potential to shut down this entire setup. Well, luckily that was a non-issue. Both of the cables I got are also powered, meaning that I can supply power to the docks or dongles connected to them without having to worry about any weird power issues. Surprisingly, I also haven't noticed any lag or stuttering either. Sure, it's a girthy set of cables that you have to run, but if you have the space, it's really not that bad over those short distances. I actually ran two USB cables because I was nervous that having so many things plugged in, like keyboard, mouse, headset, vibrator, charging cables, and phone, would overload a single connection, especially if I'm also offloading footage from my camera at the same time. So far, no complaints. It's like my dad used to always say, if you've got one long USB cable, then if you also have a lot of USB stuff, then you should also have two long USB cables. He said that to me at graduation. I'll never forget it. Okay, so it works, but what's it like to use it? Honestly, it feels exactly like using a normal PC. The only difference is that it's super quiet in here now. I've noticed no peripheral issues, no audio issues, and no video issues. Even when playing fast-paced games at over 100 FPS, it's buttery smooth. Now, I have been using this setup for a few weeks, but I can't imagine much will change. And if it has, I'll pin a comment down in the comment section, so take a peek down there. And comment what your favorite hand soap flavor is. One other benefit from hosting my desktop PC in my server rack is that it benefits from the cooling in there, as well as being close to my networking gear and NAS, so cable runs are easier than me after a few pina coladas. Oh, and I can also utilize the UPS in there, so if the power flickers, I don't lose any of my work that I'm hours deep into. So I've been talking a good bit about this setup, and I can only imagine what you're thinking. If your PC is basically 2 rooms away, how do you actually turn it on? Oh, we have a solution for that. You probably noticed when I was listing all the cables I ran that a power switch was not one of them. That's because I don't need one. So how did I accomplish that? Well, I'm actually a warlock and conjured the powers of Vecna to telepathically transmit the signal from the PC. Okay, so for like $20 to $30, you can buy a wireless remote startup kit for your PC. Comes in 2 flavors. One connects via PCIe and one connects via the USB 2.0 header. I didn't want to waste a PCIe slot, so I opted with the USB 2.0 version. You simply plug it into the header, run the built-in pin connectors to the power/reset headers on your motherboard, and then you just use this little key fob looking chicken nugget ass device to turn on your PC, and it connects over 2.4 gigahertz wireless, so you do get much better range than if you were using Bluetooth. I was nervous about this because I really wanted it to work, and it does. No issues at all going through a wall, a floor, and through multiple 2.4 gigahertz access points to send the signal. Oh, and it does have a splitter coming off the power/reset pin so that your regular power and reset buttons will still work. Overall, a really cool device that will be linked down below along with all of the other products I use to make this work. So while I am pretty happy with the outcome of this experiment, it isn't completely perfect. There are a few annoying little things that I have noticed. First off, most of the time when I start up the PC, it tells me that no keyboard is detected, which can be an issue if you're trying to access the BIOS. I assume this has something to do with the hub and not the cable length, but I'll have to narrow that issue down. Another obvious one is not having direct physical access to the system for whenever you need to change cables or monitor a system. And the last one, which is probably the worst, is that you can't see any of your RGB. Wait, where'd all the color go? Oh my God. Okay, that one really isn't a problem for me, but it might be for you. I don't know your life. So overall, is this something I would recommend? Probably not. I mean, the niche you have to be in to make this specific setup work is pretty small. If you have a well-ventilated room within about 20 feet of where your desktop setup is, and cable runs can be done relatively easy, then maybe this could be something for you or something that you want to do. For the most part, I'd just recommend spending the money on better fans to make your system quieter and to not go with the most power-hungry components on the market right now. Doing a custom water-cooled system is also an option if you have the cash to burn for it. With that said, do I regret my decision? Absolutely not. Like I mentioned in the beginning, I really prioritize noise levels with my system, so completely eliminating the system from the room that I'm in is optimal. The added benefits of having my system on a UPS and get dedicated cooling from my server rack are another bonus. Sure, I had to run a bunch of cables and have to deal with the dongle life, but that's a trade-off I'd make 10 out of 10 times. Let me also be clear that I would not have done this if I hadn't gone with a 13900K and a 4090, both of which need plenty of cooling, which means plenty of noise. I could have been sensible and gone with a 12700K and a 3070, but hey, what's the fun in that? Well, that is all I have for you today. If you liked this video, then please drop a like below. If you really liked it, then maybe consider subscribing so you can see more of my content in the future. Let me know down in the comments if you're doing something like this or if you're now considering it. I'd be curious to see if there's any other weirdos out there like me. Also want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube members and Patreons. You guys are my noise-free productivity system that is just about 20 feet away from me. I hope. That's all for this one. If you're still watching, then you're a real one. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.